The following video clips are from the Shay Sharday YouTube channel. She is interviewing Dr. Thazan Johnson. I will put a link to the original video in the description. For the past 14 years, this doctor has been teaching a college class on United States black men. Mr. Kevin Samuels mentioned him in a few of his videos. Mr. Kevin Samuels told black women that according to this class, women of other races are coming after and getting your men. 20 years ago, back in the year 2004, I lived in Arizona and took a video editing class at Arizona State University. I was surprised and shocked by all the white girls going after black men. The reason why is because back in the 1980s and 1990s, all the girls were going after Latin men. Back then, I did date and got into relationships with a few white girls and Latin women, but they preferred Latin men. They pursued Latin men. Now they were coming after black men hard. Then in 2008, the United States elected President Obama, and now white and Asian girls really came after black men. In the year 2012, I was working on starting a business, and I needed some type of income. However, I needed a job that would give me time to work on my business. So I got a job working at a retail store. Some Latin and white women were coming after me so hard that I would hide in the back of the store to avoid them. At the time, I said to myself, so this is what it is like to be a white guy. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, I knew many good-looking white guys that did not have to do anything, and women pursued them hard. Being in a relationship can cost a lot of money. I was using every dollar I had to start my business. My business was my future. I figured that after I got my business going and all set, then I would start dating again. In the 1980s, many white girls liked black men but were scared to date a black man. One white girl told me that her friend said, "If only Todd were not black." Another white girl said to me, she would date a black man, but because of her family, she would not have a baby with a black man. I did not get offended because I heard stuff like this all of my life. Since I was a kid in the 1970s. Now in 2012, being in a relationship with a black man is socially acceptable. In the video clips, the college professor said that the black women that were in his class were using what he was saying in his lectures against the black men they were dating or in a relationship with. He said that he was taught by a female Black Panther, who was a feminist. Therefore, without realizing, he created a feminist class. For my foreign viewers, the Black Panther Party is a national black organization that goes back to the 1960s. They were another part of the civil rights movement. In the 1970s, they were becoming a strong political organization. In the 1970s, the Chicago leader of the Black Panther Party went to a Ku Klux Klan meeting, and was able to get them to work with him on a few issues. The Ku Klux Klan is an organization that hates black, Jews, Muslims, anyone who is not white. So the Black Panther Party still has a good reputation in the black community. Because of propaganda against them, in white America, they do not. Also in the 1970s, most of the leaders of the Black Panther Party were killed by the police or put in prison or jail. Before we start the video clips, some of my subscribers from the Dominican Republic, Argentina, Chile and Colombia told me that the women in their countries are just as bad as the women in the United States. There is a YouTuber who is in a relationship with an ex-adult film actress, and many could not understand why. This video will give you a good understanding of how United States black men see the world. Plus, if you watch some of my other videos, then you know that what this doctor says about United States black women also applies to our mothers, aunts, sisters, and female cousins. And not only the black women that black men date or get into a relationship with.
I mentioned that on a panel with Obsidian and Kevin, and I didn't know where that was going to go. Next thing I know, people were calling me because Kevin was saying it on. So I've been teaching now for about 24 years, and I started teaching a black male course because it was needed. You know, I'm looking at these young brothers who were getting accepted, and a lot of them were, dropping out. A lot of them really didn't have any support structure on how to navigate college. And early on, what I found was I had more black women than men. I started to get fewer and fewer men and more women because my initial training in my doctorate was as a feminist. One of my primary mentors was ex-Black Panther. She was a feminist. And so I came in with that framework. The only way I knew how to deal with gender was through kind of what she taught me. So I'm teaching this black male class using this approach I got in grad school, and I'm watching the numbers of black males dwindle. I'm seeing the black males in my class looking at the ground, just kind of disconnected. and I'm seeing the women more and more excited. And what I realized was that it was becoming a class where the young ladies were using me to finger wag at the men on the campus to kind of nudge them to do what they wanted them to do. So when I started to actually ask the men what their perspectives were, and I started to kind of change the narrative, the number of Black women dropped dramatically. The number of Black males started to increase. Within the next couple of years after that, I noticed I started to get this population of white women. You know, I didn't know why they were there. And when I began to kind of ask them, you know, in the hallways under the, you know, why are you taking this class? Oh, well, my boyfriend is Black and I want to understand him and his family. Or, you know, I'm trying to date some of the men on the basketball team or football team or whatever, but I don't understand them. Doing research. They're getting A's.
Yeah, very smart, very smart.
It's a weird thing where I got to give A+ to white women in a class on Black males because they are handling all the homework assignments and reading everything to a T. Another 3 or 4 years after that, I noticed the population shifted from, you know, white women to Latinas. And the Latinas were coming in with the same kind of intensity, the same kind of questions, the same motivations. They were dating Black men, and they're involved in deep conversations in the classes about relationships. They're asking questions.
You're literally telling me that you had a class that was dedicated to Black men, where Black women have an opportunity to study their men, understand what they're going through, understand how to relate to them better. And instead of us doing that, you have other women of other ethnic groups, other races going in, taking notes, using that as ammo to get the quote unquote best men out there. Yeah. So it's like, how can you compete with that? This is based upon what you just said. It's like, this is why they are winning our men. If that is such a big complaint, this is why these other women, white women, Latinas, Asians, this is why they are winning or stealing, however you want to put it, our men, because they're actually interested in their interest. You know, when I asked you a few minutes ago, I was like, why are Black men asking for so little? And then you go in to say, well, they're kind of used to that. They're socialized for that. You know, there's all these complicated dynamics. And if you meet somebody you're asking for breadcrumbs and they give you a sandwich, it's like,
oh yeah,
whoa, what is this?
Favorite comedians, he had a whole bit where he talked about the power of okay, like having women that actually say, okay, you know, can you give me a glass of water? Okay. And he was like, you know, it was mind blowing to hear a woman say it. And as funny as it was, he was tapping into something that I didn't know I was frustrated about. I didn't know I was curious about what it feels like to have somebody that is, you know, not only cooperative, but will happily so, you know, and just something as subtle as that. Because when Black women were the majority of the class, a lot of it was very argumentative. A lot of it was very critical of Black men. I mean, I remember there was one class very early on where this young man had come out the military. He's over 6'3". He's, you know, well-developed muscularly. He's almost done with his degree, and he was a virgin. And, you know, he mentioned that in class, and the entire class of women went off on him and were trying to emasculate him at every turn. And I actually had to stop them because they weren't about to stop themselves. And the most hostile were Black women and white men.